everyone. My name is the Crowdfunding Masterclass. This is episode number 5. I'm joined today by Bill Huston, the founder of My Crowd Rocks, and as always, Alon Goren from Invested In. This is an hour where we just answer your questions. The sole purpose of this show is to help you become more successful in crowdfunding and raise as much money as possible. So we already have a good number of attendees here today. This is awesome. We have a ton of questions. So I'm going to let the panelists introduce themselves real quick, and then we'll get right to it. Welcome, Bill Huston. Please introduce yourself.
Hi, everyone. How you doing? My name is Bill Huston. I'm the founder and CEO of My Crowd Rocks and consulting company.
All right. Thank you very much. Hey, Alon. Welcome back.
Hey, how's it going, guys? My name is Alon Goren. I'm one of the founders of Invested In. Hey, Joseph, turn down your volume.
All right.
So with Joseph, I'm also the founder of the Crowd Invest Summit, which is the most mainstream and biggest crowdfunding summit of the year. It's at the LA Convention Center on December 7th and 8th. It's going to be a huge event. We've got mainstream big speakers, guys from Shark Tank, and it's going to be a great event. Tons of investors and tons of great companies will be there, and you should too.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And by the way, Alon, can you set up a discount code for our attendees while we're live? I would like to invite everyone who's online today to come join us at the Crowd Invest Summit in December at the LA Convention Center. Like Alon said, we have a really cool lineup of very high-profile speakers, very educational panels, and we'd love to see you guys there. So maybe we can set something up like Masterclass 20 or something, and we can post here in the chat, Alon?
Masterclass 20. It will be done in about 30 seconds. Fill some time.
Awesome. And in the meantime, let's get straight to it. Let me start with the first question posted by David. Thank you very much for your question, David. He is going to be raising money, looks like through a rewards-based campaign, and his product will sell between $250 and $340. So around $3 to $4. He seems to be from the UK. Everything is in pounds here. So basically, David's question is there any research that points to the best performing price points funding campaigns? And I know we talk about this a lot. So this first one is for you, Bill. What are the best price points from your experience? Do you know any research? What works the best?
Sure. What I would always recommend is taking a look at least 5 very similar campaigns, and at the very least 5, checking out what those price points are and how those price points work, and measuring from there. Normally the best price points are going to be where the object or whatever the product is actually going to cost with a slight discount. Because people are giving you the money early before they receive the product, there should always be a discount to that. So always keep that in mind. So I look at maybe a 20 to 30% discount from maybe what retail is going to be.
Right. So and what I know from talking to the folks at Indiegogo who did extensive research on this, they say that the $25 price point seems to be working the best in rewards campaigns, but it's really important to have variety of price points. Even a $1, $2 donation can be very effective in onboarding new supporters. Someone who may not be ready to give you $20 or $100, they may just support you to become part of your campaign, and then later down the road, they may upgrade that to a larger price point. It's important to keep in mind to have many different price points for your supporters to choose from. Cool. Let's move on to the next one. This one is from Jeremy. He just posted this. And by the way, here, no, it's that side. On that side up here, you see a little box where you can post your questions. Posting here, we'll answer them live. We also have a a number of questions on the website that people posted before the webinar. But moving on to Jeremy's question, how does a crowdfunding campaign raise money when you're a locally focused business? When you're a locally focused business, they have a co-op brewery that they are working on. Local crowdfunding, I'm assuming that Jeremy is talking about an equity campaign. How do you best go about that, Alon?
Well, one, I think you actually have a few things that are going for you. So there's a couple things that go against you, but don't really mean that much. It's you don't have the whole world to contribute to your campaigns unless you can ship, right? So if you can, then your campaign is open to the whole world, and that's great. But actually having a narrow focus of who you're going after helps you reach those people. So if you're a brewery and you are in Springfield, whatever state you're in, you can post online and go, okay, I'm in Springfield, California, and I want to target these specific people in my city. And now you have exactly who to go to. You could go door to door if you wanted to. It sounds counterproductive, but doing that kind of work actually helps a lot. You know that, let's say, I know that if I go to my own Facebook page, well over half of the people live in the city that I'm in or grew up with me in the city that I'm currently in. So those people are willing to support you. So for that specific reason, you know who to go after. You said you have a brewery. Good news is I think the biggest campaign ever up to now is going to be a brewery. That's a BrewDog campaign, right? How much have they raised, or what's their target?
Oh, they are not talking about how much they've raised yet, but this is on track to be the most successful and biggest crowdfunding campaign of all times. People love beer, so that seems to be working really well for them.
I know, if it wasn't 11 a.m., we could have a beer on this each time. Yeah.
Somewhere. Hey, Bill, you're in a part of the United States, in Kentucky, that's traditionally a little overlooked by traditional funding, venture capital, angel investment, and that kind of stuff. And so crowdfunding is a real game changer. And I know that you have worked on a number of local campaigns. Maybe you have some input for Jeremy here, what we can do to really drive a very locally focused crowdfunding campaign.
Yeah, sure, absolutely. I mean, you can still use social media. It just needs to be really hyper-local when you use it. Facebook and Facebook ads are absolutely terrific for those hyper-local campaigns. You're able to target zip codes. You're able to target people who come through a particular area or zip code during the day. So Facebook is really good for that. Also, Twitter is good for the hyper-local campaigns as well. As you move forward, normally what I recommend that you do with the Facebook is when you do a Facebook campaign, is what you're really looking for is to grow that email list and to get some to get some people excited about what it is that you're doing, get them signed up for that email list, and start getting them the newsletter so that they can share that newsletter with their friends, and gives you a really good opportunity to push some of that peer-to-peer because it's so low.
Yeah, I'm always fascinated by it, and I think that in equity crowdfunding, the local aspect of these campaigns will even grow in the future. Let's move on. Thanks, Jeremy, for the question, by the way. Let's move on to Michelle. Michelle is asking, I have a fundraising campaign for a festival, and she's stuck on how to move forward. They only have 5 weeks to the festival, and they have not yet raised the money they need. Unfortunately, she didn't tell me how much they're trying to raise. But so the question is essentially, what is the best way to pump up the campaign and get what type of promotion will be effective? I don't know that there's anything immediate about crowdfunding. It's all about planning and actually building your network. What are some of the things that you can do and raise more money when you haven't reached your goal yet?
Yeah, well, if you have done some percentage of your goal, the way that people really do boost things up at the end of their campaign is going to the people who've already supported them and already contributed to them and ask them to help. You could ask them to double down, but what's more valuable is for them to actually reach out to their networks and say, hey, I'm supporting this festival. It may not happen unless you support this, buy tickets in advance, come to the campaign and help out. And you have to be reaching out to those people early and often. And like Bill said, you should be doing it way in advance and building up the email list so that at this point you're not having these problems, but you're already here. So let's make it work, right? So I would go after all the people who are already supporting you and double down. It's not a coincidence that the people who put the most amount of effort raise the most money, right? The amount of money you raise has a direct correlation to how much work you put into it. So work your butt off. You got 5 weeks.
What's coming to mind here, Michelle, is that pre-sell your festival tickets. Just like Alon said before, pre-sell 1, 2, 3, 5 tickets at a time to people who are interested in what you're doing. Another thing that you could try would be a localized media outreach. On Crowdfunding, we have a very, very powerful media list service that you could check out. You can also do a press release since you're just 5 weeks out. It seems like the perfect time to do a press release for your event and try to drive some traffic to your campaign page that way. That works really well. You can also try and find other festivals that are in your area that have happened in the past. They usually have email lists and they have contacts of people who are supporting them, and try to get them on board with your festival and get the word out like that. Cool, thanks, Michelle. So in an effort to just power through all these questions, to Bean starting a non-paralysis recovery center and needs to fundraise at least $150,000. Should be my first campaign goal be? Would it be smart to start a campaign in November with Christmas being so close? That's actually a really good question. Christmas time comes up a lot. Alon, let's start with you again. Trying to raise $150,000. What are the first steps?
So first step where I would go before I get to the Christmas question, and that actually I think I would probably call up Josef and ask him that same question if I was about to do a campaign before Christmas. So I'll point at him. Bill probably has some feedback as well, having managed a lot of campaigns. So what I would do, you have some things that are working for you, and you have some things that to do. So one for you is something really great, and you're a nonprofit organization. So depending on the site that you're on, you can offer tax-deductible donations, and people like that. And that's one more reason to why not throw in $50. These people are doing something good. I'm even going to get tax deduction. Wonderful. The thing that's interesting about crowdfunding and human nature in general is that people are pretty damn selfish. If you don't get something in return, it's hard to get people to give something. And it sounds counterintuitive and counterproductive and kind of messed up, but that's just the way it is. And I've had a few celebrity-driven campaigns that I've been a part of, and one of them was giving away like signed headshots and guitar picks and things like that. And they basically were raising money so fast, and it was amazing to watch in real time until the second they ran out of signed headshots, and then ghost town. And then we got their people to give us another 1,000 signed headshots, and all of a sudden, boom, they raised $10,000 more, and the second they were done with the signed headshots, done. So the thing that I would recommend is, one, if you can somehow tie, maybe some local sponsors can give something away that somehow is related to the nonprofit, that would be really great. But otherwise, you have to appeal to people's emotions, right? So the best way to probably do that in the situation you're in is go to the existing, nonprofits and groups that deal with paralysis recovery and see how you can get them involved. One, they already have people that are interested in that sort of thing, and two, they have those email lists and they have the connection to those people. You'll have to find a way to partner with them, but that's if you can't partner with people, then you have other problems, right? You'll have to figure out how to get to the right audience, because $150,000 is a lot of money. It's not me going after my Facebook friends and saying, hey guys, help me out in my walkathon for this paralysis recovery center. It's trying to raise a lot of money from a lot of people. So you're going to have to expand out, build up the networks. And if you're ready to do that from a timing standpoint, not thinking about Christmas at all, November would be great. But I would think that if you're still now trying to figure out what the specific ask is and stuff like that, you might be pushing it for November. You might want to use the extra time of the holidays to prepare. What do you guys think, Joseph and Bill?
So I would think
right now, but from my experience, November, December are great months to actually run crowdfunding campaigns. But then again, you have to be ready. And like Alon said, $150,000 is a lot of money. Just for a little perspective, only 2% of all crowdfunding campaigns on Kickstarter and Indiegogo raise more than $100,000. So it's actually really hard to raise $100,000. I know that all these mainstream crowdfunding campaigns that raise millions make it seem so easy, but it's actually hard, especially for a nonprofit. What is your opinion on that?
So I would think that that this would be a great time to start, because of $150,000, you're going to require at least 6 months of pre-launch time to really build your crowd and engage these. That is a lot of money. That I would maybe take a look at seeing if there were ways that you could maybe do this in phases. Maybe you could raise a little money and raise some more money and then raise some more money for whatever the particular capital need is at that time. Also, there are maybe some opportunities to look around at some very specialty portals to see if there's any way that you could maybe look for some grants and use the crowdfunding as matching funds in order to raise that amount of capital. That's a lot of money. It's going to require at least 6 months worth of pre-launch time. And as you do that, I would certainly look for alternative models to do that if we couldn't do it in segments.
I like that. That's actually a really good idea. Try to split it up. Do it first, build an audience, see how people react to it, then do another one for 50, and then maybe do another one for 75, and just grow it slowly. Sometimes it backfires when people, I see that over and over again, it seems to really backfire when people ask for too much money at once, and then they find it really hard to reach their goal. Maybe sitting and then overfunding it, so people think that it's a real be part of that success story, which makes it a lot easier to get strangers to actually contribute. But splitting up that goal and you're running, consecutive smaller campaigns over a period of time is probably a helpful tip. Cool, thanks, Bill. Let me move on to the next one. James is asking. He has a billion oil prospect and he needs to raise $3 million to drill and complete. Is this something I could raise on crowdfunding? Oil drilling. Never heard of it. What do you think, Alon?
I think that this sounds like one of those, not to be an ass, but it sounds like it's like one of those, okay, here's a too good to be true money making scheme. All I need is $3 million and I'll make you $1 billion. Let's do this, which doesn't translate well on the internet. I've seen people do it offline many, many, many times, and those people are very successful and make a lot of money. But when you see stuff like that online, you instantly think, this seems a little scammy. Plus, if you're talking about raising $3 million, you're talking about raising money from accredited investors, then you have to have the first $1 million or $2 million already raised offline, and then you come online to subsidize it and help sort of throw gasoline on the fire. It's hard enough, I think, for startups that have real traction and real documentation and products to go online and raise $3 million. For something like this, I'm not sure, maybe I'm out of your wheelhouse. I'm not sure what I would need to see to believe it and to put, write a $10,000 check on the spot, right? That said, if you have all that stuff in order and you have all of the paperwork in order, maybe one of the real estate crowdfunding sites has the infrastructure and the potential investors if it's structured right. So I would maybe reach out to them and try to learn as much as you can. But it just feels like one of those situations. Like my first one sentence reading the question on the side makes me kind of go, oh, that's scary. And that's not to be a dig at you, James. It's more to be honest and tell you you've got to maybe either come up with a different story or you've got to find the right path or get the right traction or the right paperwork, or maybe I'm just not in your wheelhouse. Could be too.
I actually agree with that, and I'm not. This is out of my wheelhouse. I don't know anything about drilling oil. Seems to me that $3 million. I don't know. That maybe buys the drill head or so. I have no idea how much money that costs. Doesn't seem like enough money to actually get a project that completed. But hey, could still be a great idea. Thank you, James. Michael has posted the next question. This one is for you, Bill. And Michael would like to know, what are the characteristics of successful film production campaigns? In particular, amounts raised, rewards, incentives offered, etc. What do you usually advise your clients?
So with that being said, again, this may be a place where we would break this up into different segments, depending on how large of amount of money it's going to be required to actually make the film. That again can be a very tricky and a very difficult one, because films can be very expensive. But if we're talking about maybe something low budget and indie, filmmaking is great, and the reason it's great is because you have tons of videos to show people. People really like to see video. It really helps to convert. So what I would recommend would be getting out a lot of interviews, getting out a lot of behind the scenes videos of things that are coming, some outtakes, some bloopers, those kinds of things to build an interest in people. Get those out. Indiegogo, I would probably recommend for that particular campaign. They really kind of specialize there. And just get the word out, get the buzz out, use tons of video, see what the feedback is with people. One of the things that I always talk about, and this is vital, is that when you start any crowdfunding campaign, you need to reach out to your own network immediately. If the people who you know and who care about you won't support you, it's going to be pretty difficult to get some support from other people. So the first thing I would do is I would start with a small group of people that I know, maybe my email list, maybe personal friends, co-workers. Start testing out some ideas with them, start putting it out on Facebook, see what kind of response and feedback you get, make adjustments from there. And then, once those adjustments are made, then you start to look out for people out there in the field who may be interested in it, people who may be interested in the also in the subject matter. And with Crowdster, something else that is really, really a powerful tool is you can find super backers who have already backed 5, 10, or 20 indie films in the past. So that would be a really strong recommendation, would be to use this super backer tool on Crowdster.
Thanks, Bill. What's your take on this, Alon?
Hey, finally a guest beat me to plug in Crowdster on Joseph's behalf. That's good. My thoughts really are, you have many examples of really, really great film projects. Copy what they've done, take Bill's advice, use a tool like Crowdster to target the people who've already contributed to those types of campaigns, and you're ready to rock. I mean, you have a lot of good examples to pull from.
That's really good advice. I mean, looking at other success stories, look at similar campaigns who have raised as much money as you have in the same kind of film vertical, and copy as much as you can from what they've been doing, because it's usually always a similar process. So that's good advice. Thank you for your question, Michael. Murray wants to know, Murray is from Ireland, and he wants to raise $80,000 on Kickstarter. He wants to know if there's any research that suggests that setting up a US corporation would yield better results? I'm guessing this is in relation to if people trust US-based campaigns more than others. I'm not sure there's any data on this. Do we know anything on this, Bill? Have you worked on international campaigns, and do you know if a US-based campaign does better?
Yeah, sure, I have. Actually, I worked with a Russian partnership for a couple of years, and the one thing that I learned is that, yeah, absolutely. So we would base all the campaigns out of the United States, and we seem to have more success that way. So Ireland maybe works, being in the UK, but for anywhere maybe outside of Europe, Western Europe, I would maybe recommend that they do use a US campaign, a US-based campaign. That's been my experience.
Cool. Alon, you want to add anything to that?
What I would add is I would trust a US-based campaign before I trust one out of Russia, right? So, but that being said, it probably depends on who your target audience is. If you think that 90% of your contributors are going to be in Ireland, then focus on the campaign and don't worry about anything else. But if you're reaching Americans, then you probably want to have at least a partner in the United States or something there to show that that you're cool, you're with them, and you're not something that's fraud or. Right.
I guess that a campaign that's based in Ireland has less trust issues than a campaign that's based in Russia. I'm just saying, but it shouldn't make a big difference. If you do incorporate in the United States, just talk to a CPA. We're not qualified to answer any tax questions here, but there are some tax implications, and you just want to make sure you have all your bases covered. Thanks for that question, Marie. Let's move on. Alberto, my executive project is
I don't understand it.
I gotta get that question, Alberto. I'm sorry. Can you maybe rephrase it? And I'll try to revisit a little later. Gracie is a first-time crowdfunding user. She's trying to raise $45,000 giving funds for her startup business. Unfortunately, she's not able to rely on her social media contacts or friends or family. What are your thoughts on PR firms, Twitter? Okay. Well, Gracie, so the question is essentially, what can you do without relying on your own social media network? And here are two things that I just want to throw out there. You're going to need capital, right? So you either need human capital, so you build your own audience on social media and you take the time and really build people who are interested in what you're doing and who will support you. Or you have the capital to buy Facebook ads and hire consulting agencies to do the job for you, like Bill, and I'm sure Bill can talk about this a little more, but it's gotta be either or. What's your take on this, Bill?
What I tell people normally is that there is one fundamental rule in crowdfunding. If you do not build an excited and engaged crowd, you are not going to get any funding. It's just that simple. You absolutely have to build a crowd. You don't have to start out with a large social following, but you have to build one, and they have to be excited about whatever the product or service that you're offering is. So what I would recommend is taking the time to do the footwork, the legwork that is required to build that crowd. Start out wherever you are and start reaching out to people. Start talking about people. Find targeted people, right? Find people, influencers in that particular field, and start reaching out to them. Start following those people. Put them on a Twitter list. Retweet them. Start to build relationships with those influencers. And as you build those relationships with the influencers, reach many more people and grow your following much faster. But without a crowd, you're not going to raise any funding at all. As Joseph said, if you have the money to use Facebook ads, that's another great way to really grow a mailing list. But you have to have it. There's no way around it. You know, start with your inner circle. I like to call it the inner circle. The people who you know, people who are friends with you, co-workers with you. Start with them and have them to help you to do that. Find brand advocates. But you absolutely have to raise a crowd to crowdfund, or else it's just impossible.
Yep. I guess the bottom line is that you need a crowd. Alon, you want to add something to it?
Yeah. I think Bill broke it down pretty well, but what I would say is, if you don't think of your friends and family as relying on them for the, I think, what was it, $45,000. So you need $45,000. You're using, you said crowdfunder, so I'm assuming it's equity, right? So you're trading equity in your company. What I would do is, you shouldn't rely on them for $45,000. I know my mom couldn't give me $45,000, and you know, I wouldn't expect her to. But what I would expect her to do is share my campaign and spread the word. But you want to be doing the footwork in advance. So, you know, if you start a company, create a Facebook page for that company, a LinkedIn profile for that company, a Twitter account for that profile. Make sure every single one of the people in your network follows those people and shares those profiles, and start to do the footwork that Bill is talking about. You have to create a crowd. You're starting a business. If you can't get the first $45,000, you probably don't have a reason to start the business. Like, let's be super upfront about it. If you were starting a store on Main Street in your town, you couldn't get people to show up at the front door of that store, then your store is going to go out of business. This is your first attempt at getting customers and selling something. You might be selling equity in your company versus a product, or maybe you're selling a product. Either way, you've got to sell. And if you can't find people to sell to, regroup and figure out the right path for that. That's just my thoughts. And your inner circle of people, whether you can count on them for cash or not, you can count on them to help spread the word.
Very true, very true. Thanks, Alon. This kind of ties into a question from Eric that I want to answer here. This is very common. He wants to know, how do you go about restarting a campaign? So if your first campaign has failed, and it's usually the same reasons why they all fail, how do you make sure that the second one is successful? I'm going to let you start with this one, Bill.
So again, one of the things that I do with any and every campaign that I start out with is I take a look at 5 successful campaigns, and I take a look at what they did, to reach that success, how they went about reaching that success. I'll take a look at the media that supported them. I'll take a look at how many people followed them, how many followers they had on Facebook, how many followers they had on Twitter. So I'm not sure what the initial mistakes were that were made. But again, there's a process that I follow, and within that process, it's I start with that inner circle. I start to look at that inner circle for my initial support. That inner circle, I want them to, if they can't fund it, right? So there are going to be 3 different groups in that inner circle. The first group are going to be people who are going to fund it and share it. The second group are going to be people who are going to share the campaign, and the third group are going to be people who may or may not do it, but I may be required to give them a call and give them a little more of a nudge. Once I've reached that inner circle, once I have people behind me sharing it, and we start to get some traction, then it's going to be easier to bring other people on. Again, one of the things that I highly recommend is to find influencers in whatever the particular field is. Reach out to those influencers, build relationships with those influencers. Maybe if you build a good enough relationship with them, they may write about your product or service, or they may allow you to guest blog. Those would be the kind of things that I would work on initially in order to bring my campaign to the point where I'm ready to launch. A lot of times people set a launch date and they'll say, I'm going to launch on this date. It's to launch your campaign until you are launch ready. And what launch ready means is that you have built a crowd that is excited and that is engaged. Another thing that we try to do in the very beginning is we try to get some commitments from people the moment the campaign goes live. So there's traction and people can see the traction. Everybody loves a winner. Once you have that traction, once you get up around 25–30%, then you can start to reach out to the media. But you have to get that early win. And the way to do that is to have a long pre-launch period where you're building your crowd, and if you're reaching people and you're turning those people into brand advocates and they're telling their friends. It's all about sharing and crowdfunding.
Yeah. But usually we don't know why exactly Eric's campaign didn't succeed, so it's hard to say. We'll just assume that it was actually, it had merit. It was a good campaign. So the reason is probably that he wasn't able to drive enough traffic to it, didn't do enough audience building. So it really, on this webinar, it always comes down to the same thing when we answer the questions. The pre-campaign is so important. If you don't have a crowd yet, you have to run an audience building campaign first. There is just no way around it. And we try to hammer this home every other week and try to be really clear about this. Kickstarter and Indiegogo aren't going to do anything for you. None of these platforms are going to do anything for you, really. Even if you get featured in a newsletter, that's like a blip on the radar for a day or two. You may get some donations, some contributions, but after that, what happens then? And you know, without knowing the exact details as to why Eric's campaign wasn't successful, the second time around, make sure you have the first 30% of your funding goals secured. So don't launch until you actually have, via email, calls, personal meetings, secured the first 25 to 30% of your funding goal from people who will make that contribution the minute your campaign goes live. And that's so important, because that needs to come from your primary, from your first degree circle, right? So no stranger will look at a campaign that has 2 contributions for $8, and then you can't expect them to make a contribution and jump on your bandwagon if it doesn't look like a success story in the making. And this kind of ties into the next 2 questions that I have here, and they are all about the pre-campaign phase. Alon, can you break down a pre-campaign and an audience building campaign, and what steps you would have to take if you literally started from zero? You have a few Facebook friends, but that's it. Like, where do you start? How long does it usually take?
Yeah, so if it's your first business, your first time going out there raising money or whatever, you have to sort of start from scratch. So I would take a look at the industry that you're in and start to join the groups that the industry is in. If there aren't any specific groups you could join and be a part of, I would create those groups. When I originally launched Invested In, we thought filmmakers were going to be the #1 people to reach after. So we created independent filmmakers Facebook group, an independent filmmakers LinkedIn group, and we started adding our friends to it and acquaintances and inviting people to it, and those groups now have tens of thousands of people in them. But before we started, we really didn't know anybody besides a few friends who were filmmakers. I knew musicians would be a part of the group, and I knew some more musicians than I did filmmakers, but it turned out that wasn't the right avenue for us. You have to kind of start doing research and work and building that, right? And then we're just going along the lines of what Bill was telling us earlier. Now you've got to reach out to your own network and start building that network and building the crowd. Something I didn't have a few years ago that now all of you guys have the benefit of is tools like Crowdster. You know what industry you're in if you're raising a campaign in, right? You're going to be a filmmaker, or one of the people here is going to be a wellness coach, right? You're going to be a musician. You are starting an electronics company, a software startup, a brewery. You can go to Crowdster and you can say, I want to follow people on LinkedIn or follow people on Twitter who are in Los Angeles, Chicago, and Detroit, who have all contributed to 5 or more filmmaker campaigns on Indiegogo or Kickstarter, and you start following those people, you start becoming friends with those people, you start engaging those people, and then you start to build. And that's an ongoing process. And I know I'm not really breaking it up into stages, but don't have didn't have time to prepare this one. But the last thing you do is exactly what Bill was telling you. You go to your friends and family, you go to the people in your network, and you say, I'm going to be launching a campaign on April 1st. And on April 1st, I need every single one of you who is going to contribute to do me a solid and contribute on the first day. And then you literally pick up the phone, you send emails directly, and you go, Joseph, I know that you know what I'm doing. I would really appreciate it if you could contribute. Do you think you could contribute on the first day? And if so, how much are you in for? And you put people on the spot. And it feels shitty and it feels a little weird at first when you aren't used to doing that sort of thing. But you're going to learn that the best thing you're ever going to get good at in business and negotiating is putting people on the spot. As uncomfortable as it is, you have to eventually ask somebody if they're in or out. So you've spent months and months and months telling everyone you know about what you're doing. Now it's time to put them on the spot. And some people will hurt your feelings and say no, or some people will say absolutely and not come through. And some people will say, you know, I can't, but I'm going to share it with everyone I know. And you got to be positive. You got to be nice to everyone because you might still convert them, and you still need them to share your campaign and really help build the network. So that's sort of the last step, is putting people on the spot. And if you don't have 30-40% of your funds in the bank, so to speak, before you even begin, you've got to regroup and think about how you're going to approach this. Because at the end of the day, there's two things. One, like Bill said, I think you said that nobody likes a loser, or you said everybody likes a winner, so you were way more positive than me. So I'll take it a step further and say, I've said this a million times, I did not come up with this, I stole it from someone, but nothing attracts a crowd more than a crowd. You're not going to get a blogger or somebody from Forbes or the Wall Street Journal or Variety to write an article about your campaign if there's a big old goose egg there. You've got to have something, right? It can't be 0 out of 10,000, it can't be 100 out of 1,000,000. It has to be significant. And you want to get to that 30% goal because there's statistics there too that say that campaigns that get to 30% within the first couple of days end up reaching their goal. Ones that don't have a much harder time. So there's that part, the statistical, analytical part, but there's a psychological part. And I will tell you, if you can't get your mom, your sister, your brother, your best friend to contribute to your campaign, how the hell are you going to convince somebody that doesn't even know you, right? You have to have a good product. You have to have a good sell. And if you can't get your mom on board, you got to take a look in the mirror and figure out what you're doing wrong.
Yeah, man. I couldn't agree more. And before hearing Bill's opinion on this, because I know that he knows a lot about pre-campaigns. Crowdfunding is a full contact sport. Plan to go out there and get your hands dirty and talk to people, and you're gonna get many no's, but it's all about collecting the yeses and building up momentum, and then launch, and only after that, again, only after you have that first initial support, you will be able to actually get support from strangers. Bill, because this is so important, if you could just like on a high level break it down again, the steps of running or planning a successful pre-campaign, audience building campaign, like just on a high level, because I want to get the other questions answered too, but what's most effective?
Yeah, so again, what's going to be most effective is beginning with that inner circle. I read a statistic one time where it said 12% of all crowdfunding campaigns do not earn a single penny. How is that possible? You know, there are 1.6 billion people on Facebook. Who did you tell? So what you have to do, you have to immediately start to reach that inner circle, tap that inner circle. And again, what I always look at with that inner circle is there are going to be people in that first group, and they're going to say, yes, I will support you financially, and yes, I will support you by sharing your campaign and being a brand advocate. There's going to be another group of people who are going to say, I cannot financially support the campaign, but I will be your biggest brand advocate. And that's great. That's what you need. Then there's going to be that third group of people who you know, or who maybe you don't know. They may be second degree connections that you may have to reach out to and give them a personal sale. And I use the word sale because you are selling a product, you are selling a service, you are selling an idea. So the first thing that I have to do is I have to look at it from the perspective of the person who I am asking to part with the money. I can't just tell you what a great product it is and you know what I think about it. I need to have a sales pitch. I need to I need to be able to demonstrate to that person why they should part with their hard-earned money to purchase this product. So those are the perspectives that I have to approach this with. So after you build that inner circle, what I would recommend is really looking hard to build your email list. Start bringing people on board via email. Have them share your email list. I like to use MailChimp because the price is right in campaigns. And as you begin to do this, it's not going to be until you, as we've already described, until you find some success that the media is going to come on board. The media's job is to find exciting stories to bring eyeballs to whatever the story is they're writing. It is not to help your campaign to be successful. So, just think about this as a sales job. And, I am asking someone to part with their hard-earned money and what message is going to resonate with them. And the good thing is in social media, you can try all kinds of messages and you can look at the data and the analytics and you can tell what messages are resonating and what messages are not resonating. And take your time, take as long as it takes in order to get that first 25, 30%. If not, then you're just kind of spinning your wheels and wasting your time. So that's what I always recommend that you look at is that first 25 and 30%. You get there, the rest of the campaign will take care of itself.
Yeah, great, man. Thanks. That's really, really good advice. And that comment you made about media was the perfect segue to our next question from Danny, who wants to know about the best press release services and how to distribute a press release. And let me just start saying again that the media doesn't cover crowdfunding campaigns to make them successful. They, just like Bill said, they talk about success stories to drive eyeballs to, but you really need something to show for. So the question isn't which press release service is the best. Crowdstar has one. It works very well if it's used the right way. We write press release for you. We distribute it to all the same sites that all the other press release services distribute to. Some get a lot of traction, some get no traction at all, and the deciding factor really isn't where or who, but when, right? So don't send a press release when you just launched your campaign, when you have no traction, a wasted bullet. You're not going to have any success from it, and you're better just working on the same thing we keep hammering home, the first 30%, the first 30%. Once you have that, then you can do a media outreach, and you can buy media lists, you can reach out to journalists, you can say, hey, look at my great campaign, it's awesome, you should write about it. And then they won't feel stupid, because think of it from the journalist's point of view. You wouldn't write about a press release campaign that doesn't look like it's going to be successful. It's really that simple, regardless if it's an equity campaign or a rewards-based campaign. What do you guys do in terms of press releases? Bill, is that something that you recommend for your clients, and how do you go about making them as efficient as possible?
Sure, absolutely. Once we get to that 30% mark, and I want everyone out there listening to notice that we continue to talk about that 30% mark because it is very important. It is extremely important to get there. That's what I focus on. I focus on getting to that first 30%. So once the campaign has traction, then it's much easier to get people to write about the campaign because they see a success story. They want to drive traffic there. If you ever wonder why it is that you think that crowdfunding campaigns all raise millions of dollars, it's because that's what you see in the media. That's what drives the media. So what I would recommend that you do, I want to say what you have to do, but what I would recommend that you do is that you start that outreach and you begin to reach out to influencers and you begin to reach out to bloggers because they're going to be maybe a little bit easier to build relationships with if you're sharing their stuff. If you're sharing whatever it is they're writing about, if you're interested, if you're commenting on their blog post, you may get a little bit more traction with them. And in some respects, they're kind of the new media today. If you get a few bloggers that have, 5,000, 10,000 people that they're following, but they have to be influential with those people. You have to look at other things. You have to look at like their retweet ratios and things like that. But if these people are influential and people are going to follow them and take a look at whatever it is they're writing about, then that's something that I recommend highly is an influencer/blogger outreach. The journalists are not going to come on until the campaign is successful. So if I were going to spend any time reaching out to the media, it would be bloggers and influencers.
Very, very true. I have a question here from the website, actually. Peter wants to know, why should he choose crowdfunding over traditional funding? Why wouldn't he just go to the bank and get a loan as opposed to running a crowdfunding campaign? What's your take on that, Alon?
So, one, it's not that easy for most people to get a big loan. Loans cost you money. What you're doing here, there's two different things we talk about in crowdfunding, and I know that most of you today have been talking about rewards-based stuff like Kickstarter and Indiegogo and stuff like that. And then there's equity-based crowdfunding, which is really, sometimes it's like taking a loan, sometimes it's like giving a piece of your company to people. When you talk about the first part, Kickstarter and Indiegogo, it's actually very beneficial to not think about it as fundraising. You'll probably do better if you don't think of it as fundraising, because at the end of the day, you have to give something in return for the money people are giving you, right? So when you get money from the bank, you get $50,000 in your bank account, you start paying them interest. But you don't have to use that $50,000 to make 10,000 t-shirts and send them one. But on Kickstarter, you do. So why don't you think of it what it really is, which is pre-sales and revenue for your company. So what's better at the end of the day? Would you rather your son comes to you one day and says, "Hey, I started a business and I have $100,000 in the bank. Isn't that amazing?" And if he tells you, "I went to the bank and they handed me $100,000 and I owe them that $100,000," that's okay, great, good for you for being resourceful and getting $100,000 from the bank. But if then he told you, "No, actually, I didn't get $100,000 from the bank. I sold $100,000 worth of my product." That's a business that's worth millions of dollars now potentially, right? You're the owner of a business that made $100,000 in revenue. That's freaking huge. That's amazing. That is very, very cool. And guess what? At the end of the day, you're going to have to fulfill the campaign. You're not going to have $100,000 left in the bank. You're going to have $100,000 minus what it took to fulfill your orders. But now you have hundreds or thousands of customers. Those customers, because they came early on, are evangelists for your company, are going to make you more successful. Now, if you're talking about debt or equity, similar idea. You've sold Joseph on the idea that your company is going to be worth $1 million or $10 million or $100 million one day. You're going to be the next Facebook. You're going to be worth tens of billions of dollars, hundreds of billions of dollars. Be the next Apple, the most valuable company in the world. And I've convinced Joseph, give me $1,000. 3 years from now, 3 months from now, 3 days from now, I start selling a product. I get an article written about me in the Wall Street Journal. Is Joseph going to get that in an email, look at it, and indifferently either not even open the email, or is he going to open it up, get super excited that his $1,000 investment might turn into $100,000 and share it on Facebook and tell every friend of his to buy your product? That's what he's going to do because he's an owner of the company now. He has a vested interest in making sure that you do as best as humanly possible. So that's really the difference, right? It takes a lot more work than just filling out a loan application. It takes a lot more work than putting something on your credit card, right? But what you get in return is an army of people willing to fight for you, and that's worth more than the amount of money you get from it. You will spend more money than you get from a crowdfunding campaign to get that kind of media attention on a regular basis if you were to do that on an ongoing basis. So in my opinion, obviously, Bill and Joseph and I are on the same page. We're putting our lives on betting that this is an industry worth getting behind, right? So we are biased in that respect. There is a cost to raising this money, but it's also there's a cost and there's a missed opportunity with getting money other ways. So you got to weigh all those options. If it's going to take you 3 years to raise the same amount of money, you could get a loan from the bank tomorrow and start your business, and in 3 years your business is going to be obsolete, then by all means go to the bank. If it's that easy for you to get money from the bank or get a loan, then you should probably do it anyway, because it's not that easy for most people. But you're also personally responsible for returning every single cent when that happens. When you raise equity for your company fails, everyone was in the same boat as you. You lost some money, you put Band-Aids on your wounds and you move on. So there's a million different ways you could approach it, but that's my 2 cents in talking too much.
I agree. I mean, we see more and more crowdfunding campaigns going on Kickstarter and Indiegogo more as they look at it as a marketing campaign more than raising money, and that just goes to show for how powerful it is as a marketing tool. And that, like Alon said, everyone who backs your campaign is also now an evangelist, and they will tell their friends about it, how awesome this is, what they just invested in. What's your take on this, Bill?
Not a lot I can add there. You guys are really spot on with that. But the one thing that I would say is that what comes, the least valuable thing that you get from crowdfunding is the funding. You are building a crowd. If you are connecting every day with people who have purchased your product or service. You can ask those people, do they like it in black or do they like it in red? They can be a focus group. Crowdfunding is powerful. It is powerful. So stop looking at the money. Start looking at building that excited and engaged crowd, using that crowd as a focus group, using that crowd to get proof of concept. Crowdfunding is super powerful. And the other thing I would add to that is that crowdfunding would not exist if it were that easy to go to the bank and get the money.
Yeah, so true. We have time for a few more questions. 2 minutes to go. So let's power through at least 1 or 2 more. Is there a strategy? Okay, is there a strategy companies selling an idea and not necessarily a product that they should consider? First thing comes to mind, it's a lot harder. This is a question from Will. Thank you, Will. Bill, when you work on campaigns for products that don't exist yet, which many crowdfunding campaigns are for producing molds, making the first batch that they order from overseas. What's the difference between a campaign that is just an idea at this point and something that's actually a tangible product that I can ship out tomorrow for you?
So a lot of the campaigns that I work on, fall into that second category. They're campaigns that are ideas, and what we're funding is an idea. So again, it's about sales. It's about letting this person know how whatever this product is going to impact and change their life or impact and change the world. That has to be the message. So many times people will come to me, and what they'll have is they'll tell you how great this product is, but they're never looking at it from the perspective of the person who is purchasing it. How is it going to benefit them? Not how is it going to benefit you? And that's the first perspective that you have to look at, is how is this thing, whatever it is, the product, how is it going to impact them? How is it going to make their life better? How is it going to make their life easier, more efficient? Those are the things that you have to talk about and the things that you have to sell. Then you're going to look at market segmenting. So if it's a tech, who don't care about the technology behind it, but it stops them from getting wet when they cross the street. So, you have to understand who your audience is and target and tailor your message to that audience. But crowdfunding is really principally built on people who don't have a product yet. They have a product, an idea. They need the money to create the product. So yeah, it absolutely is something that can be done. It's just about targeting your crowd and building that crowd again. You have to build your crowd and then target those people. So yeah, absolutely. That's most crowdfunding campaigns are run like that.
Awesome. Alon, final words. We're running out of time here.
Final words.
Oh, by the way, did you create that discount code?
Oh, yes. Yeah, discount code Masterclass20. If you go to crowdinvestsummit.com and you're interested in attending, I gave a 20% discount to everybody here with the coupon code Masterclass20. So go check it out. It's LA Convention Center, December 7th and 8th. It's going to be pretty epic. Robert Herjavec from Shark Tank will be speaking. James Altucher. James Altucher, which is a writer, he writes for the Wall Street Journal and a million other places. He's an entrepreneur, investor. If you follow him on LinkedIn, you'll recognize him. He's got a goofy hairdo and he kind of talks funny in his podcast, but he's super smart and is one of the most influential people in business on the internet. He'll be speaking. And then we've got literally the VC panel is going to be 5 dudes representing billions of dollars speaking at one time, who could write a check for any of our companies to millions of dollars on the spot. It's going to be a really, really, really epic event, and you should all attend. Yeah, follow us on Twitter. Go to crowdinvestsummit.com. My Twitter account is Alonymous, ALONYMOUS. So follow me there. I post all sorts of ridiculous things, but mostly crowdfunding stuff.
Awesome, man. Thank you so much for joining us again this week. It's always a pleasure. By the way, Alon is now a co-host, and we'll have him on every other week. I'm really excited about this. Bill, thank you so much for joining us today, sharing your wisdom with us. I think we were able to answer a lot of questions. Let the people know where can they reach you. What's your Twitter handle? What's your website? And all that good stuff.
So they can find us at ourcrowdrocks.com is our website. You can find me at BillHuston1 on Twitter.
Awesome, awesome. My name is Josef Holm. This was the 5th episode of Crowdfunding Masterclass. Thank you, everyone, so much for tuning in. We will be live again in 2 weeks from now. We will pick up where we left off. I'm sorry we couldn't answer all the questions today. I hope this was helpful and educational. And as always, all the best with your crowdfunding campaign. Like our page, subscribe to our YouTube channel. We would love to hear from you. Have a great day. Thank you so much, guys. Until next time.